Hello, Darshan Maharaja here. Yesterday, I saw a news report in the Globe and Mail saying that the government of British Columbia has imposed or announced a 30% cap on international students at public colleges. This report had been published a couple of days earlier by Canadian press. Globe and Mail was reproducing it. And until now, this cap has not existed at post secondary education institutions. So I became giddy, as many of you know. I've been following this issue for quite a while now, and all the problems that are being caused or have been caused by the out of control policy and practice on the study permits, that is the international student issue. So I became giddy and gave some glowing affirmation, glowing testimony to this development. Uh, the fact that this kind of a cap has not existed until now points to how half baked sometimes our policy tends to be. And I suspect that in some cases they are intentionally left half baked so as to allow for maximum profiteering or other forms of malpractice by connected people. That is a separate subject. We'll hopefully tackle that at some point in time. But the fact that this cap has now become part of policy, at least in one province, is a positive step. So, to that extent, I still remain elated about the development. Uh, but as Sir Humphrey Appleby would say, on mature reflection, I got to think as to whether this is going to make a meaningful impact, a positive impact on all the fronts where all of us Canadians are suffering because of this out of control policy. And the answer is that yes, it has the potential to be meaningful, but it is not yet meaningful. And I organized my thoughts, and then I felt that I should share those thoughts with you. First of all, even in this is just one province, British Columbia, although it is one major component of the entire mess, uh, surpassed only by Ontario, which is like the heavyweight player in this mess. After that, it's British Columbia. So to that extent, yes, it is somewhat meaningful, but it is just one province, so it has to spread to other provinces also, for which we as Canadians will put pressure on our governments. But even within British Columbia, it applies only to public colleges or public post secondary institutions, universities, and colleges. So the private colleges are still kind of not covered by this cap, although the earlier announcement by the federal government that uh, private colleges will no longer be eligible for postgraduate work permit should play a role, because for many of these private colleges, their only USP to foreign students was that the student could then get a postgraduate work permit. um, or if the institution itself was not qualified, then they could transfer to a public college where uh, there would be a postgraduate work permit. Uh, since this USP no longer exists, there is a depressing effect on their enrollment numbers as I see it. I haven't seen any data yet, but I'm imagining that there would be a depressing effect. And as I have discussed earlier, many of the international students have now taken to lodging refugee claims or asylum claims. That is another issue that will have to be tackled at some point. But first of all, my in my euphoria, I said that I had spoken about this 30% cap in my initial chat with Clyde do something some 6 months ago. Then I recollected that actually I had said that there should be a 10% cap. And response to my Twitter post yesterday, a lot of people have said that as well. Uh, What I had said on Clyde's show was that there should be a 10% cap in terms of the number of students and 30% cap in terms of the revenue from tuition, because international students pay between 2 times to 3 times as much as domestic students. So at 10%, they would be somewhere within the 30% range in terms of tuition revenue. So again, this 30% cap seems inadequate. We need to push for reducing it further to 10% and to spread it to all the other provinces. I've also mentioned how Cape Breton University in Nova Scotia, according to a report in Globe and Mail late last year, had 71% of their students who are international, and most of them are from India. So, those specific cases also need attention. The federal government is trying to, uh, bring about some regulation as to whether students are attending classes or not, and if they transfer from one institution to another. They're trying to bring some regulations, but as I said, these will probably be half baked so as to allow for maximum profiteering slash malpractice. It is up to us citizens to keep pushing until the policy is in line with what is good for society, rather than for select few players in the whole scheme of things. Now, the BC government the report by Canadian Press includes a statement by the government of British Columbia, which I think needs uh, some thinking on our part. It says the cap is also meant, quote, to help ensure that enrollment levels do not put pressure on local communities, end quote. Now, this should have been the concern right from the word go. It should have been the concern from the moment we were going into this policy. Now that all the problems have been created for local communities by excessive intake of international students, now they are saying that they will help ensure that enrollment levels do not put pressure on local communities. You're thinking about this now? I mean, already there is so much imbalance in local communities that it's going to take a lot of effort and, uh, frankly, hard decisions, which politicians are sometimes, or maybe more than sometimes, not very willing to take. It's going to require those hard decisions. For example, and I note this from my city of Brampton, uh, where there is a campus of Sheridan College. All the way back, as I recollect, in 2018, I saw a report in the local newspaper, the Brampton Guardian, saying that 75% of the students at the Brampton campus of Sheridan College were from India. And the issue had blown up because there was no arrangement made by the college for their residences. The homeowners in the surrounding area of Brampton, they started renting out their basements to the students. The going rate at the time was $260 a month per student. And the general practice was to have six of them in the basement. So that was roughly $1,500 a month in rent for the homeowner. And this straight away doubled the rent for basements. New immigrants typically, live in basements for a short time, maybe a few months or a year, depending on how things go for them. That rent used to be in the range of $800 to $900. Straight away, now the basement started yielding $1,500, which was almost double of the going rate. So that exacerbated the situation for people, families especially, who were looking for basement rent. Now, fast forward to today, when a mattress space on a shared basis is rented out for $500 a month. So this problem has been brewing for a number of years, and I have spoken about this many, many times, including that at a city council meeting of Brampton, Two of the councillors at the time in 2019, one of them is no longer a councillor, but two of them at the time said on the record that when they were out campaigning for their election in 2018, they found between 15 to 25 students living in one basement. Of course, they did not bother to report it to any authorities because they were more concerned about the votes of the homeowners and their family than about the physical well-being of all these young people. So, as I said, the issue has been brewing for a very long time. Now we have reached a point where governments are forced to address the stress that this excessive intake of international students causes on local communities. So the fact that it took so much pain and so much suffering for so many people for them to come around to doing or at least acknowledging what should have been part of the equation right from the word go shows how broken our politics is. But what it means, and at that time when the issue blew up in Brampton about Sheridan College, the people from the college said that they were willing to create residencies for students, but they wanted some public funding to be given to them. So it's like privatize profits and socialize costs. It's a common tendency, but when it comes from an educational institution, it hurts. So that was the background in which I am seeing this. The Now let me get to the main part of today's talk, which is this going to be meaningful? Is putting a cap, whether it is 30% or 10% or whatever, putting that cap on international student enrollment at colleges and universities, is it going to be meaningful? As I said, it has a potential to be meaningful, but the numbers right now are not aligned in that direction. uh, See, I came across this user on X. I mean, I've been seeing his posts for quite a while now, at least 2 years or 3 years. Account named Table Salt, and the accounts that I'm going to mention in this entire examination are generally reliable. When they give numbers, those are not to be doubted. They are at least in the ballpark range. And Table Salt said that in the first 6 months of 2024, uh, a total of more than 400,000 work permits had been approved under the Temporary Foreign Worker Program and the International Mobility Program. That is something that not many people are aware. There is something called International Mobility Program. So work permits get issued under that program also. Plus, there may be refugees whose work permit gets approved, and which is in principle a good thing because you don't want them to be dependent on handouts. It's better if they are working, although there is a conflict with the job availability for Canadians. So that is a separate issue. But these are the categories under which work permits are issued. Now, according to Table Salt, more than 400,000 permits had been issued. So on an annualized basis, that is 800,000 work permits um, for temporary residents being issued in 2024. Now, another friend of mine, Nitin Chopra of Prime Asia TV, I have done several shows with him on this issue. He posted data from government website saying that in the first 5 months of 2024, some 79,000 refugee claims had been received. So, and then elsewhere, I have forgotten the name of that account, but elsewhere, someone posted that in the month of June, 18,000 refugee applications had been received. So that is 97,000 for 6 months. So we are on track to clock 200,000 refugee applications in 2024. Add that to the 800,000 work permits being issued and the target of 365,000 international students that Minister Miller announced earlier in the year, plus the 500,000 permanent residents. to be accepted in Canada. Now there is some overlap between these categories, so a simple adding of the numbers will not yield the right total. For example, people who are on work permit may get approved for permanent residency. In fact, that is their whole objective. So, and those who are on study permits may get issued work permits, or those who are on refugee status then get issued work permits. So there is a good deal of overlap between the categories. But ballpark, we can say that the total increase in Canada's population in 2024 will be in the range of 1.3 million to 1.5 million. Now, this will be the third consecutive year of this kind of population growth in the range of 3.5%, probably a little bit higher than that, but let's say conservatively around 3.5%. So all the problems that have been caused by overpopulation, or at the very least, too rapid an increase in population, all those problems will not be alleviated. If anything, they will be exacerbated, as I am seeing, because population growth, as I am seeing these numbers, is continuing unabated. On the other hand, uh, I mean, have you heard lately Prime Minister Trudeau or any of his ministers or caucus members talking about unlocking so many homes? That has vanished, because they tried it for a couple of months, maybe 3 months or so, and then the actual number of new homes being built, the home starts, has declined. So they have quietly allowed it to recede into the background. But people like me who have nothing else to do will remember. So they are no longer talking about unlocking so many homes in this city or that city, or total overall for Canada. So housing is actually sliding. We haven't seen anyone talk about increasing the capacity in healthcare, and you can talk about every other piece of infrastructure where the stress that was already created is not reducing, but in fact it is being exacerbated. So looping back to my original point, while this announcement from the government of British Columbia is welcome step in the right direction. I mean, to that extent, I still remain euphoric that something that should have been done, right from the word go, is at least now belatedly being done. Although it's still incomplete, the cap needs to be much lower than 30%, and it needs to be implemented by all the provinces. But this is something to be reservedly happy about. That's what I thought on mature reflection, quoting Sir Humphrey Appleby again. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye and be well.